What's going on, guys? It's me, Zach, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. Hope you guys had a really great Thanksgiving. I'm sorry I didn't really make any videos last week. Was traveling, visiting family and stuff, and just didn't really have any time. But I'm back. We're gonna get to the end of the season here. Really gonna finish strong here, and just gotta hit up that home stretch. I think a lot of us are probably pretty certain about whether or not we're gonna be in the playoffs. Maybe a couple of you guys are still fighting for spots, so you need guys to help you now, or maybe you're looking for guys to sort of groom and hope that you can use them in the fantasy playoffs. So however you're sitting at right now, it's just important to make sure you keep making your team better each and every week and really just do the best you can to make sure you get yourself that fantasy championship. It's definitely crunch time. It's some of the most fun parts of fantasy is just making these really savvy moves over the last couple of weeks, and those are often the kind of moves that can win you leagues. I won a league last year, but picking up Rashad Penny towards the end of the year, and who knows, there'll be someone like that probably this year as well. So, yeah, with that, let's get into the video. I'm starting us off with the quarterback position. I think there's a couple guys worth taking a look at. The number one ad here, as much as I hate to say it, it's going to be Deshaun Watson. He is eligible to return this week, and he's in line to be the Browns starting quarterback this week against the Texans. The Texans are a relatively favorable matchup, although most teams end up finding themselves up 20 points at halftime against this team and don't really need to play their starters. But I think that this will be a little bit different. I think the Browns are going to want to get Deshaun Watson sort of as much work as possible, get as comfortable in the offense as possible. So I don't think you need to worry about any sort of situation like you had with the Dolphins this last week, where the starters only play basically the first half. But Deshaun Watson, you probably aren't picking him up to play him this week. But if you don't have a top 5, top 10 locked in quarterback every single week, then I mean we know Deshaun Watson has that upside. It feels a little grimy, but he's certainly a guy that could be a difference maker if he comes back hot. It's also possible that he's worthless and is just rusty after the 2 years off, but he's worth taking a look at, of course. Trevor Lawrence is another guy I'd be interested in. He's looked really good. I think he's the quarterback 11 on the season, surprisingly, and he's been relatively consistent. He sort of seems to be growing up in front of our eyes over the last couple weeks, and they get a really nice matchup with the Lions this week. So Trevor Lawrence would be my preferred starter this week in terms of quarterbacks that you need to pick up and just play this week. And then Jared Goff in that same matchup, he's a guy that you can pretty much stream every single week. The Jaguars aren't a matchup that you're afraid of, so he'd be a guy that you could pick up and add as well. Jameson Williams might come back here at some point too. DeAndre Swift's going to get healthier and healthier, so this offense could take even a further step forward as well. So Jared Goff could be a guy that you could be streaming if you need to. Moving on to the running back position, we've actually got quite a few guys that I think are worth taking a look at here. My number one out here would be Zonovan Knight. He is the Jets running back. If you aren't aware of him, he was pretty active in their game this last week, even before Michael Carter left the game with an ankle injury. James Robinson was a healthy scratch, so I think Zonovan Knight is in line to be the first and second now running back on this team. I'd fully expect them to activate James Robinson this next week as well if Michael Carter's inactive, but I think he looked decent. This is a team that has had a pretty relatively successful time running the ball so far this season. They play the Vikings this week, who aren't exactly a defense that scares you. We just saw how many yards and points they gave to the Patriots this last week. So Donovan Knight could be a guy that you could pick up and play if you're in a pinch. Gus Edwards is another guy. I mean, he's definitely somebody that you're mainly looking for in half or non PPR formats, but he's always got touchdown upside. He's going to get 10 to 15 touches probably. And I mean, he's a guy that you could spot start if you need to. I do note that J.K. Dobbins has been activated for his 21-day return to play window, so it's possible that J.K. Dobbins is back sometimes here soon. So Gus Edwards might not be super valuable here down the stretch. Kyron Williams is another guy I'm interested in. He's getting more and more work out of the Rams' backfield. They really have no reason to look at anybody other than him because he's the youngest option, and they're in a lost season right now. They might as well see what they have there. So Kyron Williams could get more work down the stretch, and he could certainly be a guy that's worth using. Anthony McFarland's another guy I'd be interested in. He looked like the guy that has the most juice out of the Steelers' backfield when Najee left the game with an injury, and Jalen Warren already missed this game as well. So they could be down to Anthony McFarland and Benny Snell next week. I mean, I don't love it, but he looked like he had some juice. The running backs are always pretty involved in the Steelers' offense, so Anthony McFarland could be a guy that you can use. Jordan Mason's another guy I'm interested in. We saw Elijah Mitchell go down with an injury that's going to keep him out the rest of the year, at least in terms of the regular season. He's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. And we know that Christian McCaffrey is dealing with some left knee soreness. So there's a world that exists here where Jordan Mason's the number one running back for the 49ers for a week or two here, especially if they want to give Christian McCaffrey a day off, given that they might clinch a playoff spot here at some point. So Jordan Mason's going to be a guy that you should pick up. He should probably be rostered in all leagues. They're not going to want to give all those carries to McCaffrey, given that he's already dealing with a little bit of an injury. So Jordan Mason's going to get touches and a good offense. He'll have some touchdown upside. He should be rostered. Jerick McKinnon, he's just a PPR guy you can add. He's getting 4 to 6 targets every single week. He's got some touchdown upside. This Chiefs offense is obviously elite, so he'd be a guy that you could pick up and play in a pinch if you need him in a PPR format. James White's another guy I'm interested in. Or James Cook, I mean. He's been very clearly the number 2 running back for the Buffalo, even after the addition of Naheem Hines. He looks honestly better than Devin Singletary. I think he's a talented player, and he could get even more and more work coming forward. He's not necessarily someone that I think you could play right now, but if something were to happen to Devin Singletary, he could be a league winner. And then some more backups I'll talk about. We've got Zamir White, Josh McKelly, and Alexander Madison. Zamir White is the clear backup to Josh Jacobs. Obviously, Josh Jacobs had a monster week, but he did pop up on the injury report with that calf injury, so if something were to happen with him there, Zamir White would be in line for a lot of work against the Chargers defense. Josh McKelly, speaking of the Chargers, he's been activated. He's the clear backup to Austin Eckler, so he's the kind of guy that could be a league winner if something were to happen to Eckler. And then Alexander Madison, always, if something happens to Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison's a top 10 running back. And the last guy I'll mention here is Mike Boone. He should return for the Broncos here soon. They're not going to want Latavius Murray to be a full-time guy, so Mike Boone could have some really deep league PPR value. He's probably not somebody that you want to add if you're in a 12 or 10 team league, but if you're in a deeper format, he could be worth taking a look at. Moving on to the wide receivers here, my number 1 ad is going to be Treylon Burks. He's looked really good over the last couple weeks. He had 7 for 111 yards 2 weeks ago, and this last week he had 4 catches for 70 yards and a hustle touchdown that's really going to make him more endearing to his coaches. He's going to get more and more playing time as the season goes on. He's a clearly talented player, and this Titans offense needs him. So Treylon Burks sort of has that almost Amon-Ra St. Brown-esque arc over this last half of the season. He could be a guy that really blows up and wasn't useful in the first half of the year. So I think Treylon Burks has got to be rostered. I've rostered him in every league that he was on waivers on over the last couple of weeks. And if for whatever reason he's still there, you got to add him. Zay Jones, he's coming off a career game with 11 catches for 145 yards. He's just a very involved piece of this Jaguars offense. He's somebody that needs to be rostered. He's a guy that you can play in even 10-team leagues if you need him as a PPR guy. He's got plenty of volume. He's a safe play. And honestly, this Jaguars offense might be taking a step forward, so he could be worth adding and really could be a difference maker down the stretch. Michael Gallup, he looked pretty good this last week. He's getting healthier and healthier. If the Cowboys don't add OBJ here, then Michael Gallup is going to be the clear number 2 wide receiver for this team. I'd expect them to be in some more shootouts. They still have to play the Eagles so far, so are going down the stretch here. So they should have some games where they need to score some points, and Gallup's certainly a capable player. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he finally had a down week here, but he's been really involved over the last month or so, and Deshaun Watson should, in theory, make this offense much better. So Donovan Peoples-Jones is definitely going to be worth adding. I want to wait and see with him, see what this offense looks like for Deshaun Watson, but Peoples-Jones will be a guy that you can use after that if things look good. Isaiah McKenzie, I mean, he had 10 targets in the Bills' offense. He's an involved enough piece that you can play him if you need him in a pinch, and he's a decent enough player on a really good offense. He's somebody that should be rostered. Jameson Williams, he's been rumored to potentially be back as early as this Sunday, so at some point, Jameson Williams is going to come back and play football for this Lions offense. It probably won't be a guy that you want to play right away, but you could, hold him on your bench and see if he comes out hot. If he looks really good, he could be a guy that you could play in the fantasy playoffs. Sky Moore has been coming on hot of late. Juju's been kind of banged up. We know that Mecole Hardman's on IR, and obviously MVS hasn't been much. So, and Kadarius Toney's banged up as well. So Sky Moore's got an opportunity here. He's a really talented player. I've liked him a lot, and he's sort of making the most of his opportunities. So he'd be a guy that I want to add and hold on and see what happens there. OBJ, obviously, he's going to sign with the team here in the next couple weeks. He's obviously got upside. We know he's a talented player. He's going to sign on a decent team. I don't really love the ad because I don't know that there's ever really going to be an opportunity where you're confident in playing him. Because if you're a good team and you're making the playoffs, you probably have better receivers than him, and he's probably going to be the number 2 or number 3 wide receiver of whatever team he joins. So I don't really love it, but if you disagree with me there, I think you could add OBJ and see what happens. Elijah Moore is a guy I'm interested in. He's a really talented player, and Mike White clearly likes him a lot more than Zach Wilson did. He had 2 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown this last week, and I think he'll be more and more involved as the season goes on here, especially as Mike White gets more comfortable in this offense. So Elijah Moore is worth adding and seeing what happens. Matt Collins, he's the clear number 2 wide receiver for this Raiders offense. They're going to have to score a lot of points because their defense isn't great, so he's definitely worth adding. He's been pretty usable so far as well. And then Van Jefferson, we know that Allen Robinson's going to be out for the rest of the year with a foot injury, and then we know Cooper Kupp's probably going to be out for the rest of the year as well. So for the next 6 weeks, you got Van Jefferson as the wide receiver 1 in an offense. Obviously, it's going to be a really bad offense with probably not much quality quarterback play. I guess it's possible that Stafford comes back, but why would they do that? But regardless, Van Jefferson is a deep threat. He's the number 1 option in an offense. He should be rostered, and he could be a guy that you could play in a pinch if you need to. And then last, we got the tight end position here. My number 1 out would be Hayden Hurst. He's just looked really good. He's an integral part of this offense. I know that Jamar Chase is going to come back this week, and it's really going to sort of limit the necessity for him. But they do play the Chiefs this next week. It's going to be a game where they got to put up a lot of points, and Joe Mixon's banged up as well, so they're really going to have to lean on that passing game even more. So Hayden Hurst is definitely a guy that I want to add. He's going to get 5 targets a week. He'll turn that into probably 40 yards and a shot at a touchdown, so he's worth adding. Foster Moreau, he's been a really integral part of this Raiders offense since Waller's been out. he's decent. He's actually a decent player. He had like 3 catches for 33 yards and a touchdown this last week. But like I said, there's not a whole lot of options for this Raiders offense behind Devontae Adams right now. It's Foster Moreau, Josh Jacobs, and Mac Hollins making up the rest of everything. So Moreau's an integral part enough of a good offense that he should be added. Evan Ingram, I know he's had a really tough stretch down the last couple weeks, but he's got a really nice matchup this week with the Lions. So if you're looking to stream the tight end position, I think Evan Ingram's got a shot there. And then Greg Dulcich, he had a really rough week. He hasn't been great at all the last couple weeks, and the Broncos' offense has obviously been just absolutely brutal. But Greg Dulcich, I still think he's a talented player. I think that it's hard to imagine this Broncos defense being even worse, and Greg Dulcich has been involved in the offense, so he'd be a guy that's worth adding, but it's definitely not someone you're comfortable playing with. But I think he's definitely going to be worth rostering, especially if you're thin at tight end. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.